Hey everybody, Callous Draft League is back, and it is the finals, baby! You hopefully looked at the semi-final matches, most of which I covered on YouTube. That was between purple and orange, and obviously if purple is here in the finals, you know who won. They are against the green team, the one-seeded wire-to-wire favorites green team, who really, anything can happen now that you're here, but up to this point, they have been so dominant in this tournament. It was not even close that they had the number one seed and the bye. They've had multiple players that are really, really good records and really, really performing, and nobody's really dragging them down. Green, very much from early on all the way till now, has been the team to beat, and they are definitely, at least on paper, the clear favorites and the team that is supposed to win this tournament. But purple already played spoiler for the orange team that was supposed to beat them, and maybe they can do it again. This is the first draft that completed in real time in the finals, therefore I'm bringing it to you first, and I'm very excited to do that. Two good players, and I think this is gonna be a good one. Like I said, these are not two of the weaker players, definitely two of the stronger players on their respective teams. It is Voz. He's Synodin, for those of you who have been just watching the games. He's on the purple team. He's going to be our player one today. And then on the flip side of that, we also have 48 for the green team, who I've already covered on the channel a number of times. You guys should be pretty familiar with him, but he has had a hell of a tournament for the green team. This is a big matchup, and unlike some of the other matchups that we've had, it doesn't feel one-sided. It does not feel like a foregone conclusion that one of these players or the other is very, very likely to win. This is a match pre-draft that truly, truly can go either way, and to me, those are the most fun. You can play up the whole underdog story, top player on a team versus bottom player on another team. Oh, what an upset it would be. And I try to do that because I don't want to be like, well, this is going to be a stomp. But the reality is these closer matchups are generally the more fun matchups. So I'm excited for this one. With all of that out of the way, let's get into it. You guys know the rules by now, so let's just check out what they did. Like I said, Voz is player one, so he's got the first ban, and that first ban is going to be Celebi. Fair enough. That Mon, it's probably not banned more often than it's banned, but when it does get through, it gets picked very, very early. An inoffensive ban in my mind, but like I said, probably does get through more often than it doesn't, so we'll see how that changes the dynamic. Okay, Tyranitar goes out for 48, which to me means that Metagross is going to go out somewhere as well, because by banning one, you basically have to ban the other, otherwise you just give it over. That is if, of course, you view T-Tyre and Meta as the two best Pokemon in the format, which not everybody does. Voz is going to remove Skarmory from play, and then I would assume that 48, like I said, is going to follow up with Meta, which does end up being the case. And now Voz, with the first pick, unsurprisingly, especially given what is banned, is going to take Snorlax, which not only might be the most powerful Pokemon still remaining, I would say that it probably is, but furthermore, all four of the pokes that got banned are good against Snorlax, therefore this pick makes even more sense than it would have already. On the flip side for 48, going to go ahead and say that I don't like it. He's going to go with Salamence and Gar. The Gar part I'm fine with. Salamence I think is a smidge overrated. It's a fine Mon, but I think other Mons still available. Aerodactyl, Regice, Blissey, Starmie, possibly one or both of the primary bulky waters, etc. I like those Pokemon all better than I like Salamence. Nevertheless, a fine poke, even if it's not the poke that I would have taken in this position. Gengar, on the other hand, very, very good. I would have grabbed that here for sure. So, the swing back is both bulky waters, both good bulky waters anyway, Swampert and Milotic respectively for Voz. Taking these picks it's gonna de-incentivize 48 here from taking Aerodactyl, which is kind of awkward. I can see him going like Zapdos, Blissey, or something to that effect, even Zapdos Starmie maybe here. since those both match up well against these two bulky waters, but it's kind of weird that, like I said, Aerodactyl, one of the best pokes still remaining. He's now kind of sort of discouraged from taking that based on what just got grabbed from Vaz. So 48 is actually going to go, this is unusual to me, he's going to go Blissey plus Fortress here. And I like me some Fortress in this format. I do think it's a top 20 or so Mon, and it can be a good round 1 pick. It's certainly a very, very good round 2 pick if it makes it that far. But taking Fortress when, again, Starmie, Aerodactyl, Regice, Zapdos, those kind of Mons are still available, that's a harder pill for me to swallow. I like Fori, I like Mence, but I don't know that I like them as much as 48 seems to. Vaz on the swing back is going to go with Aerodactyl, which makes a lot more sense for him rather than against him, again, given the double bulky water that he took. And then he's also going to grab Starmie. It seems wise to me to grab a good spinner and your opponent just took a good spiker, and then the other one, Skarm, is banned out. The other thing, like I said, Starmie is reasonably good against these two waters. Not as good as Zapdos, but it's still pretty good against them. So the fact that it spins and that it's good against the waters that he already has certainly is a reason to pick it here. And I thoroughly, utterly, completely, entirely disagree with 48 not taking Zapdos here. It seems like an egregious mistake. You're staring down Swampert, Milotic, Aerodactyl, Starmie. Zapdos feels like an absolute no-brainer here, but he is instead going to opt for Heracross and Registeel, and I cannot emphasize my level of disagreement with these picks. There's absolutely no way, staring down Swampert, Milotic, Aerodactyl, Starmie, that you let Zapdos go here. There's absolutely no way that that's correct. And I also don't agree with valuing Registeel over Regice. Not only is Regice the better poke, not only do you have one of the other good special walls, but again, Bolt Beam, look at what's on the other side. Regice very, very good against Swampert, Milotic, Starmie, and it's okay against Aerodactyl too, with the Stab Ice Beam threat or the T-Wave threat, respectively. For me, I don't like either of these picks. I think Zapdos plus Regice is far superior, and of course, that is exactly what Vaz is going to take here, and without a doubt, not even close, I vastly prefer Vaz's round 1. I don't like the order of picks for 48. I think the Mence is too early. I think the Fori is too early. I think the Heracross is too early. And I really don't like a lot of the stuff that he passed back. So I think the overwhelmingly superior first round is for Vaz here. And this is unusual because 48, I think, is a good player and generally a good drafter. And he's had a really good tournament. So I'm not clear what's going on, but this is uncharacteristically sketchy. This is the kind of draft that I would expect from a newer player or one of those guys that's, 2 and 4 or whatever. 48, I think, should be drafting better than this. Kind of surprised that this is where we are, but I overwhelmingly favor Vaz's position after the first round of picks. But we've seen these things turn around. There's still a lot of time. Let's see what happens. The ban for 48 is going to be Moltres, which I don't think is good at all into his opponent. So I think it's more that he himself doesn't want to play against it. He's got Fori, he's got Heracross, he's got Registeel. So unless he's going to pick it, which like I said, I don't think I would because I think it's pretty damn bad against Vaz's lineup. You want that to not be there. That's a logical ban in my opinion. On the other side, this is a weird ban, but I get why it's being made. Sceptile is not a poke that's typically valued this highly. It maybe at most is like a mid to late round 2 pick. A lot of the time, Sceptile is a round 3 pick. But again, just staring at the specific team, look at all the waters. Swampert, Milotic, Star. I mean, by the way, broken that the same player gets all 3 of those. But yeah, the fact that he's got the triple water and also the Leech Seed obnoxious threat against the Lax, Sceptile very much feels like the kind of bond that Vaz doesn't want to play against. So as weird of a ban as that is on paper, as early of a ban as that is on paper, given the specific circumstances and context, I think it makes sense. Following with the Moltres ban, same logic here. Charizard, we've seen multiple players do this where they ban out both Firebirds in one go. It's the same concept as with Moltres, for obvious reasons. Fire is good against Fori, Heracross, Registeel, and then in this case, Charizard, unlike Moltres, has a good old focus punch potentially waiting for Blissey. So again, I could see why he would want to get rid of that, and one of his options could have been just picking it since he has the double pick after these bans, but it just doesn't seem that damn good against Vaz. So banning out double Firebird does make sense to me in this context. This ban I'm not as sure about. I personally don't think I'd be all that scared of Cloyster if I were in Vaz's seat. If you want to just take good spikers out of it, it isn't like a bad ban, but I don't think Cloyster is like particularly threatening against what Vaz has. In fact, I think it's kind of bad against him. Regis, Zapdos, Starmie can all T-bolt it. Aerodactyl gets the better end of that 1v1, obviously. Lax can set up on it and get curses going. I don't think Cloyster is actually that great of a pick into Vaz, so I don't know that I really like that ban. I feel like there's got to be something better that he could have removed from the pool, something else that he's afraid of and wants to make not be there. So I like everything that Vaz has done so far up till that ban. Not an egregious mistake in my mind, but I feel like there had to be something better that he could have taken, and that Cloyster is not that great into him. Regardless, 48 now does have the double pick, and he's going to use it like this. Raikou and Medicham, obviously two threatening pokes that I'm a fan of. So the double fighter so far for 48, noting that Hariyama is still available in this draft, it's a mixed bag. Obviously fighting good against Lax and Regis, but obviously not so good against Zapdos and Starmie. Fighters are neither amazing nor terrible into Vaz's draft at this time. I love Medicham. I think against Lax specifically, and against Swampert, I think I would rather have Hariyama in this particular situation. So as a small nitpick, maybe I would have gone with a different fighter. But I love me some Medicham. I'm never going to complain about that pick. Just a little nitpick that I think maybe Yama is better in this specific draft. But Medicham can't ever go too far wrong. Raikou makes sense to me as well. Not perfect into Lax or into Regis by any means, but it does get the better end against most of this other stuff. That pick is sensible to me as well. So neither of these picks offend me, but I don't know if either one is like the tippy top perfect thing that you can grab. Vaz is going to go back with two pokes that I'm a huge fan of. Dragonite and Gyarados, really, really good. And Gyarados' best counters are probably Zapdos and Bulky Waters, and Vaz has all of that at the moment. So the Gyarados seems like a huge problem against 48, and something that he currently does not have any good answer for, and is obviously going to have to address. And you guys know that I love Dragonite. I give the same speech every time, so I'm going to spare you. It's versatile. You can customize it. That's the gist. Don't need to give you an example set. You guys know what Dragonite does by now. And DD threats as a whole against an opponent who has 0 Bulky Waters right now and is going to be scraping for the B team when he does pick Bulky Waters, going to be taking the Vaporeons and Slowbros of the world, which he should take very soon, in my opinion, given where this draft is. But yeah, DD threats are absolutely very threatening right now into 48's draft. So, gonna go with Alakazam and Regirock. Okay. The Regirock, I think, is a reasonable response given the two flying Pokemon that were just taken. Also, it's good against Regis. Also, it's good against Zapdos. Also, it's good against Arrow. Also, it's good against Snorlax. So, Regirock seems like a monster pick here. It seems like it's very good against a huge portion of Vaz's draft. Vaz notably only has the 1 rock resist right now in Swampert, whereas he has a hell of a lot more, 5 rock weaknesses versus only 1 resist. So I think that, that to me, in hindsight, would have been a better ban than the Cloyster was, but certainly something that Vaz is going to have to do here is buckle down and take additional rock resists. So the Regirock, I think, was a great pick there for 48. As far as the Alakazam, we'll see. Kind of fluky with matchups. If it's against the Lax, it's probably not going to be as good as it could be. It may or may not beat Regis. Depends on the game state in the set. Maybe CM Fire Punch maybe can get you there, but you still have to watch out for T-Wave or Psych Up or just Seismic Toss or whatever. It's not a guarantee. But the Zam seems at least reasonable against Vaz, even if it is probably a little bit earlier than I personally would want to take an Alakazam. So Vaz is going to go for Jolteon and Hariyama. I think that these picks both are not only good mons, but also have a defensive element. Again, triple bulky water and Aerodactyl, not really things that want to play against a Jolteon, so makes sense to take that out of the pool by way of grabbing it for yourself. And then the Hariyama, at first, fighters were not that great against 48. I mean, he started his draft with Salamence and Gengar, so meh, same thing. Fighters against Heracross or Medicham, or Alakazam, really, meh. But he has picked up some targets. Regirock, Registeel, Blissey are all things that do not like Hariyama, and it doesn't necessarily have to be played as an offensive threat. You could certainly build it as a wall. It could be like thick, fat, bulk, and rest, or something to that effect. I always like me some Hariyama. It is a Pokemon that I think could be viably picked in the first round, so grabbing it in the middle of the second round is certainly bang for your buck. Certainly later than it usually goes, and a powerful Pokemon for this stage of the draft. I like these picks from 48. He's going to go with Flygon and also Weezing. I think that these picks have a lot of purpose and make a lot of sense. You're taking the Flygon not only into double electric, but also into an opponent who definitely needs rock resist, which he did pick up one of there with the Yama, but he's going to need more, so you're cutting that off. And then the Weezing, certainly, we've seen this before, when Snorlax and Heracross are split, both players are very much incentivized to take Weezing, and it becomes a big advantage for the player who gets him. So Weezing is not only going to be good against the Lax, but it was a very necessary defensive pick because Weezing totally shuts off Heracross, Flygon, and for the most part, Regirock. The only reason I put a little asterisk on that is because Regirock can boom on it, but nevertheless, Weezing is a pretty hard counter to most of those mons, and honestly to Medicham as well, because in Emerald Open Draft, where it's face up and there's only 8 mons, if you know there's a Weezing on the other side, maybe you get cute. You run Psychic Medicham, you run whatever, Calm Mind, Pass Medicham, something like that. In this format, you're never going to run that because those sets blow unless you're positive that you're against a Weezing, which you're not going to be. So, for all intents and purposes in this format, Weezing counters Medicham as well. There are too many things on the team for 48 that really don't want to play against a Weezing, so it's really good for him to take it here, both for the defensive side of it and because it hoses the Lax, and it also may discourage the Dragonite and the Gyarados from going strictly physical DD, so I think the Weezing pick, very good and very important there. Flygon pick not as devastating as the Weezing pick, but it's a pick that I approve of as well, like I said, trying to choke out his opponent of rock resists, which he is light on as of this moment. And he seems to realize that because he's going to take some rock resist here. He's going to go Steelix plus Umbreon. And again, I feel like the past several picks from Vaz have had a defensive element in mind. Steelix as the double electric and Aerodactyl drafter, very much the kind of Pokemon he does not want to play against. So I think that is a wise and heads-up pick for him. As far as the Umbreon, he's picking that into Gengar, which is good. It's a second special wall, or a third special wall, rather, alongside the Lax and the Regis, so that is good for him as well. Pretty much takes care of him in that department, and then Wish support is always welcome. So those picks make complete sense to me. Totally on board with it. If you care, he did pick up 2 additional fighting weaknesses there, but like I said, he also has fighting resistances as well. He's not egregiously weak to fighters, but his opponent does already have 2. And there are still some of them, Breloom, Machamp, what have you, floating if you want to go down that rabbit hole. There's also Blaziken still out there. So if 48 feels like Vaz is really weak to fighters, which like I said, I think he might have like a slight weakness, but he's not egregiously weak to them by any means between the Starmie, the Zapdos, and the Gyarados. We'll see if he wants to go down that rabbit hole. Nevertheless, both these picks make a lot of sense to me. I approve, and we'll see how 48 closes out the round. Vaporeon, I think, is something he should have taken a hot minute ago, so certainly should grab it now because I think there's a very good chance that it would get banned if he doesn't take it here. And then pick your poison between Bulky Water or arguably the only good spiker left. He opts for the latter by taking Vaporeon and Glalie. Like I said, that Vaporeon, long overdue. The 3 best Bulky Waters are all on the other side, so Vaporeon is probably the fourth one on the Mount Rushmore of bulky waters. After that, it gets worse. Slowbro is a fine Mon, but it's definitely not as good as any of the other ones before it. Porygon 2 as an air quote bulky water, again, is fine, but it's definitely not as good as Swampert, Milotic, and Starmie. If you want a bulky water, and I think you very much do, given the Aerodactyl, the Dragonite, the Gyarados on the other side, Vaporeon is where it's at. So I think if he doesn't take it now, it was going to get banned out. So he pushed it as far as he could and grabbed it, and I think he's wise to do so. As far as the Glalie, sure, like I said, best spiker remaining for sure, in my opinion. That's now 2 spikers for 48 versus only 1 spinner for Vaz. Many of the totally playable spinners, Claydol, Donphan, Blastoise, are all still out there, so we'll see to what extent Vaz decides he cares about the spikes on the other side. I would assume that he picks up at least one more spinner somewhere down the line. So the bans now go over to Vaz, and interestingly, he's actually going to ban out a rapid spinner. Not sure if I love that, given that he needs one, but I guess if he's not planning on taking this Pokemon, Armaldo, then I guess banning it makes sense. It is often picked as a Snorlax counter that will no longer be applicable in this draft. Like I said, if he wasn't planning on picking it and actually playing it, I guess you get rid of it. Not sure if I love the ban, but I don't necessarily hate it. Feel like there's probably something more impactful that you could have removed, but he's trying to protect his lax. Fundamentally, it makes plenty of sense. 48, still very worried about fire Pokemon on the other side, is going to remove Blaziken. He's been pretty consistent with his messaging that he does not want to play against fire types. His fire matchup may be vaguely improved in the second round. He did pick up another weakness in Glalie, but all of the Vaporeon, the Flygon, and Regirock are theoretically good against fire mons, so that helps. But nevertheless, he still feels vulnerable to Blaziken. Plus, we have seen way too many damn games where Reversal or Flail just wins on its own. Probably doesn't want to be on the bad end of that, so Blaziken gets the boot. Vaz is going to remove Tauros here. You guys already know I'm going to immediately do a normal resist check. And I guess in this case, banning Tauros does make sense. He has only 1 normal resist in Steelix. And I wonder if the Tauros ban is going to prompt 48 to count the normal resist on the other side, realize that there's not that many, and go, man, maybe I should grab me an Ursaring or a Zangoose, or, yeah, you know what, maybe normal is a good attacking type against you. We'll see if 48 notices with the Tauros. I mean, if Vaz is worried about it enough to ban it, that should tell you something. I guess Aerodactyl counts as a normal resist, but, like, not really. Is that what you're switching into CB attacks? Is that what you're switching into body slams? I mean, hell, even CB return hurts Aerodactyl more than you think it would. I don't count Aerodactyl. He's like half a normal resist at absolute most, so I can definitely see from Vaz's seat why he wouldn't want to play against Tauros. That ban to me makes more sense than the Armaldo, but they're fine. And then 48 here is just going to cut off a spinner. I wonder if he should have maybe taken Claydol. Given the Steelix and the double electric on the other side, I could see him playing it and it being decent, but he might fear that if he doesn't ban it here, that Vaz might take it immediately in round 3. Obviously, can't tell you if he would have or would not have. That'll just have to be speculation, but I don't think it's unheard of to think that Vaz could have there taken the Claydol. So fair enough. If you're trying to win the Spiker Spinner War for 48, that is one step towards it. Like I said, Donphan, Blastoise, other playable spinners are still available, but 2 of the better ones got removed in this round of bans in the Armaldo and the Claydol, respectively. So we move over to the third and final round, starting with Vaz. And he is going to go for Dugtrio plus Kingdra. Okay, let me check on the Dugtrio before we even discuss the Kingdra. What do we got? Yeah, I deem that to be a reasonable Dugtrio. It's okay-ish against Bliss. Obviously good against Hera, good against Registeel, good against Raikou, good against Medicham. Okay-ish, not as good as you would think against Regirock, and like okay-ish against Glalie. So take those last 2 out of it, but targets worth Dugtrioing. Maybe Blissey, definitely Heracross, definitely Registeel, definitely Raikou, definitely Medicham. that is good enough. There are enough targets there to justify the Dugtrio pick. So again, I am consistent. Just because I generally dislike Dugtrio, I stick to my messaging, which is when I don't like it, it's because people pick it when they shouldn't. Because people pick it when their opponent only has one target, pick it when there's no reason to. That's when I give people shit about Dugtrio. It blows in certain matchups. In this case, it is justifiable to take Dugtrio in my view because there are enough legitimate targets on the other side to where it makes sense. As far as the Kingdra, we'll see. There's water absorb. There's 2 good special walls on the other side. I don't know that it's ever going to go to town, but it is always a threat, and, you know, it's not perfect. I mean, even the Registeel doesn't love rain-boosted hydro pumps. I mean, especially if you pair it with the Dugtrio or something debated out earlier in the game. Kingdra doesn't blow me away in the matchup, but always a poke that can be a threat, especially later in the game as a cleaner. So I'm okay with the Kingdra pick. It's hard without a visual list in front of me of what is undrafted right now, whether there's something that I like better. But Kingdra's a fine mon. On the flip side for 48, Smeargle, meh. Jinx, not meh. So that's a 3rd spiker for 48. I'm not personally a big Smeargle fan, just as an in general blanket statement. In OU specifically, which doesn't matter here, it's okay. It only goes on a couple types of teams, but I think those teams are generally good, and I've seen a lot of players that I really respect have quite a bit of success with them, so there's that. In draft, Smeargle is weird. I hate it in the Emerald Open format because when you know it's coming, you just lum on everything. It spores, you insta-wake, you kill it. Smeargle literally did nothing other than trade for a Lumberry. I think it blows. But in this format, when you don't know which game the Smeargle is coming, kind of hard, kind of risky to just load up your entire team with a bunch of Lumberries only to not face the Smeargle and have them be pretty bad. So we'll see. Playable mon. But the big thing with the Smeargle in this case is that it's a 3rd spiker for 48 against an opponent who only has the 1 spinner, which is that Starmie that he took all the way back in round 1. Again, noting that Donphan, Blastoise, and potentially some other choices are still available if it is an area of concern. As far as the Jinx, this Pokemon has been a great, consistent performer. I expect that to not slow down anytime soon. Jinx is at very best. I mean, the thing sometimes, it doesn't ever get picked in round 1, but it's like right on the borderline of something that's round 1 level of power. But it certainly is a very, very viable round 2 pick. Anytime you can get it in round 3, that's a steal. And certainly remembering that guy or gal, female only, is available, that makes me think that would have been a better pick than Kingdra. But regardless, I'm definitely a Jinx fan, and so far it has very good results in this format. So Vaz picking up that his opponent doesn't want fire Pokemon on the other side is going to go ahead and take 2 of them. Going to go Houndoom and Entei. Houndoom double duty if fire is in fact a threat into 48, and I don't think he's egregiously weak to it, but okay, if he thinks fire is good against him, then obviously Houndoom can play the role of a fire attacker, and you've also picked up a 2nd pursuit user alongside the Umbreon to harass that Gengar and make it worse. As far as the Entei, I'm never ever going to like it more than Arcanine. I just don't. It's just worse than Arcanine in my opinion. But other people seem to value Entei more than I do and like it more than I do. If you want a fire attacker, you can do worse. So there you go. We've got an Entei. On the flip side, Miltank, love ya gal, and Machamp. So 48 has been pretty consistent with his belief that fighters are good into what's on the other side. Vaz hasn't really done too much to change that. In fact, he did pick up another fighting weakness, so there's that. The Miltank seems pretty damn reasonable here. Thick Fat is going to do work in this matchup between the Regis on the ice side and then the Houndoom and the Entei on the fire side. Miltank seems like a pretty reasonable wall here, and there are a lot of T-Wave vulnerable pokes on the other side as well. I think as opposed to just random glue. This is one of those matchups where it really makes sense because of the Pokemon on the other side to take Miltank, and I think he's going to get good value out of it. So given where we are in the draft and the quality of Mons that are still available, I think those are both pretty damn good picks for being this late, and he very well may get some amount of value out of both of those. On the flip side for Vaz, possibly with a defensive element here, Breloom and Venusaur taking away Leech Seeders to protect his Lax a bit. And of note, 48 has 0 Leech Seeders at the moment. Those are generally highly prioritized when you're playing against a Snorlax, but Vaz has banned out both Celebi and Sceptile, and now he's taking 2 Seeders in one go. And I think that's wise. Breloom, I think, is really, really underpicked, underappreciated in this format. I'm not clear why Breloom just goes undrafted a lot of the time, but Spore is a broken move that more people should take advantage of. I think Breloom for Spore and its attack stat alone, doesn't need anything else, is pretty damn viable. And if you happen to have Leech Seed against something like Lax or Reggie or Bliss or whatever, then that's obviously a good move too. So the Breloom pick makes plenty of sense. There are plenty of fighting weaknesses on the other side, and Spore is just a broken move. And Venusaur, some similarities with Breloom. Does have a sleep move, a much worse sleep move, but a sleep move. Does have Leech Seed, and then does have a useful fighting resistance that Breloom does not have. But there are a couple trade-offs. I mean, obviously Venusaur has more set diversity and is better from the special side. Has a recovery move, Synthesis. Yeah, I think they're both good pokes, and I think they both protect the Lax and protect the bulky waters on the other side. So those picks make sense to me for Vaz. I think those picks were good. These picks, however, oh boy. We are scraping the bottom of the barrel here. Hypno and Credilli, huh? Hypno, I think, might be underrated. Don't get me wrong. If you play it or pick it at all, it's definitely a poke that you pick at the back of the draft, as he has done here. But Hypno is perfectly playable. T-Wave is a great move. Thunder Wave is a great move. And he's picking up an Insomnia Pokemon into a guy who just took double sleep moves. So that could be a factor as well. Obviously trying to Spore or Sleep Powder into a Hypno, not so good. And the Hypno can super effectively attack both of them, as they're both weak to Psychic. So Hypno may be, to an extent, a specific counter pick into what was just taken. He also may feel like he needs another special wall, which may be true. He's got Blissey and Registeel, but probably needs a third one. Hypno will suffice in that role. So I'm actually okay with the Hypno pick. I think it's a little bit underrated to begin with. I think it's totally functional and playable, and it makes sense with Insomnia into what was just picked. So I give my nod of approval to the Hypno. I do not give my nod of approval into Credilli. I think that poke blows. I thought it blew before when I thought that it had Leech Seed in this gen. I learned that it doesn't have Leech Seed in this gen. And man, that thing really, really blows. It's not even a Lax counter anymore. It was a theoretical Lax counter when I thought that it has Leech Seed. It doesn't. That poke just sucks. I mean, it learns Recover. It has decent typing. Its stats are reasonable, but it's so do-nothing, and it's vulnerable to all the wrong things. Like, even though it only has 4 type weaknesses, they're the wrong type weaknesses. It takes neutral from too many things, and it's weak to a couple of really important things that you don't want to be weak to. I thought Credilli was like borderline playable back when I thought that it has Leech Seed. Now that I know that it doesn't, oh man, that poke really, really blows. I haven't seen anybody use Credilli effectively yet, and my prediction is that's not going to change. So Vaz is going to go wrapping up the draft with Arcanine and Articuno. I like both these Mons quite a bit. The thing that I would note is that despite his opponent having triple Spiker, he just doesn't care. He had an opportunity this whole time. Could have taken Donphan, could have taken Blastoise, whatever spinner you want, and he just doesn't bother. So obviously doesn't feel all that threatened by the Spikers on the other side. It looks like Donphan is just going to go undrafted. Not that I think Donphan is necessarily fantastic into 48, Not that it's bad either. It is good against, for example, both the Regis that he has, reasonable against Flygon because of counter, etc. But the reason to pick Donphan primarily would have been as a rapid spinner, obviously. And yeah, doesn't feel the need. Content with just the one spinner. 48 is almost certainly, given that information, going to bring all three spikers, and Voz is going to have to play 2 of the games with spikes that he does not have the ability to remove. As far as the picks that he did take, I like Arcanine better than Entei to begin with, so there you go. Now you've got that. He also has 3 fire types now, so if he wants to spread them out and have 1 in each battle, he can do that. He's also got another Intimidate here to help with the plethora of fighters on the other side. Articuno is interesting. It might just be to deprive the opponent of a special wall more than anything. The Articuno, I mean, it gives him a 4th special wall, basically, if you're willing to count the Lax, the Regice, the Umbreon. I think Articuno is the 4th special wall. I could see quite a few things on the other side that it's not so good against, such as the Raikou and the fighters, but I guess most of the fire Pokemon got banned out by 48 or gobbled up by Voz, so in that regard, perhaps the Articuno is relatively safe. It's a Pokemon that I generally like quite a bit, but I think it performs way, way better with spikes, and of note, alongside not picking more spinners, Voz also never did pick a single spiker, so obviously he is just not that damn concerned with that element of the draft. And finally, wrapping us up is Kabutops, or Kabutops, however you want to pronounce it. It's always been Kabutops to me. Jabba's got me hooked on saying it as Kabutops. Either way, it's that dude. It does learn Rapid Spin, not that 48 is going to need it to do that, because as we just said, Voz doesn't have spikers. And it also learns Flail, which at this point, with the games that I've seen, with the crazy Gyarados Flail sweeps and the Blaziken sweeps or whatever, it feels like damn near anything with a high attack stat that learns Flail might be viable, could be viable. Kabutops is not a poke that I rate or that I even put on my tier list, like, at all. If it's there at all, it's like near the very, very bottom as like a vaguely theoretically playable Mon. I don't think it's very good. I doubt it ends up getting played, but anything with Swords Dance plus Flail, I guess you've got to give some respect. If he's picking it for that reason, I would rather just take Zangoose. It's just better, it's faster, it hits harder, it has stab on the Flail, so grab Zangoose. But yeah, gonna go with Kabutops, and like I said, my prediction is it doesn't get played, but we have seen so many damn reversal-esque sweeps that you just can't underestimate anything that has boosting move plus Flail. So maybe Kabutops steals a game for 48. It is possible. So who won the draft? We do have a comment section. Take the opportunity right now, before I do my little summary, if you would, to hit the like button on the video. Consider subscribing if you've not already done so, and feel free to leave a comment and let me know who you think won this draft. I have kind of ambivalent feelings here. I thought that Voz overwhelmingly had the better round 1, and I still think that the overall better Mons quality between the dominant round 1 and then getting things like Dragonite and Gyarados and Hariyama in round 2 versus stuff that's like good but not that level of good in round 2 for 48. I think the overall level of Mons quality, a guy who doesn't have Credilli and doesn't have Kabutops, doesn't have Smeargle, got the better end of the first round and a half. The overall better Mons quality definitely belongs to Voz. No doubt in my mind about that. That being said, the whole Spiker Spinner thing, a little bit unusual. I'm not clear why Voz never wanted to go down that rabbit hole. The Spikers are maybe more understandable because he banned out the Cloyster, which, again, I don't necessarily agree with and didn't really see a lot of purpose to that. And then the Glalie got taken on the other side, so the moment that the Glalie and the Cloyster were both removed, there weren't really good Spikers left to take. I mean, it would have been, if you wanted one, you have to take stupid Smeargle, which is not a Mon that I really rate very highly. I don't know how he feels about it. Maybe he doesn't really rate it very highly either. So I guess the good Spiker options were kind of limited. But I don't understand, even if you don't like any of the spiker choices available, why you wouldn't go for a spinner. The Blastoise specifically, maybe he felt like he already had enough bulky waters. He's got the Swampert, Milotic, and I guess to a lesser extent the Starmie. I think you can run Starmie as something other than a bulky water and just still take Blastoise and be fine. And there was also the Donphan option, which, like I said, is not necessarily amazing against 48, but it threatens both Roar and Counter against all the fighters, which I think is totally fine. And it also is reasonable against Raikou and both Regis or whatever, so probably the most sensible Rapid Spinner that I think Vaz could have fit somewhere is probably just Donphan. And I don't think it's blatantly better than any of these picks in round 3, but I don't know. Could you not have cut Entei or Venusaur or Kingdra? I mean, was there Articuno, whatever? Whichever one you like the least, but could you not have somewhere in there found room to take Donphan? I feel like he probably should have. And that's the one thing that kind of keeps me in it for 48. I don't think there's any clear advantage as a player. I think these guys are comparable as players and both very capable. I don't think one is blatantly better than the other. I have had other predictions in other drafts where I go, hey, player A probably had a little bit of a better draft, but player B is just better, and therefore they're going to win. I recall saying that about Canucks versus DJ Arctic Pirate. I was right. I recall saying that about Zakaru versus Witchgender. I was right. There's some drafts where even though one person on paper did a little better, there's just such a gap in the players that maybe you can compensate for that. I don't think this is one of those drafts. I think these guys are probably both comparable as ADV players, and neither one is going to blatantly outplay and outbuild the other. So it really does come down to the draft, and I do criticize Vaz a bit for not picking up at least a second. Maybe doesn't necessarily need 3, but at least a second spinner somewhere. And that's probably the best hope for 48, to bring spikes to all 3 games and terrorize his opponent in that way. But I'm going to go ahead and make a bold statement here, and you guys might not agree with this, but I think spikes as a whole are overrated in this format. And I can't emphasize enough, in bold, capitalized, underlined letters, in this format. This is not me telling you that Skarmory is not good in OU. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying specifically in this format, I think spikes are overrated. Overrated doesn't mean bad. Overrated doesn't mean they suck. Spikes are obviously good, but I think they are overrated. I think people overvalue how good they are. I think the fact that games are often sandless, and I think the fact that there are a lot of randomly bulky things and that games can go longer and that a lot of things have recovered, and like I said, there's no sand. I think that spikes are not as impactful here as they are in OU or other formats. So while 48 clearly does have the advantage in that regard, I think that the overall better draft and higher mon quality belongs to Vaz, and I think that spikes, while good, are not be-all, end-all, you're going to win the draft because you have the spikes advantage level of good. I also think, crucially, that the bulky water discrepancy is very real. One of the little checklist items that we go down in this format, along with special walls, which they split and both have plenty of, I think another crucial benchmark in this format is bulky waters, and Vaz dominated in that regard. As much as I'm picking on Vaz for never picking up Donphan, I would also very much criticize 48, especially when you're taking garbage like Credilli and Kabutops. I don't know why you wouldn't at some point take Slowbro, but I think that definitely should have been one of the picks for 48, and he's really lacking in the bulky water department. Furthermore, especially against an opponent who picked up a Dugtrio, I'm not clear why Porygon 2 wasn't picked for 48. So to me, some of this junk, Credilli, Kabutops in particular, these two are just really garbage mons in my opinion. I would like his draft so much better if instead of those two shitters, he had a Slowbro and a Porygon 2. That to me would have been a little bit more spicy, and those would have been better picks. But shoulda, coulda, woulda aside, as it stands, I'm going to give the advantage to Vaz, and I'm going to predict that he is the winner in this particular matchup. You guys let me know in the comments what you think, but this is probably going to be one of the better ones because I think both of these players are genuinely good. So I'm looking forward to seeing these games play out. Keep it here. It's the finals. Lots more Callous Draft League. I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching.